Always great having you with us. Does this mean that you're really firmly on board with the reopening, with the reflation trades?
Yes, when we look at Asia, here for Japan, this is one of our overweights. This is certainly a reopening and reflation trade that we highlight in particular, and the market has lagged, and we are seeing that slowly and surely the authorities also become a bit better in the vaccination of the population. The other one I would say though, China is only partially really reopening and reflation. Remember, about half of the China MSCI index is internet platforms. So here they don't have many friends left right now, as we know, with regulation and investment. But you will see during the second half, I think the decks getting reshuffled. I think this is an area where there's so much growth and people have neglected it for so long. Tables might turn here.
But what happens once we start to see this policy tightening around the world? We have seen the signals coming from the BOK, not to mention Mexico, Hungary, the Czech Republic raising rates last week. This GTV chart on the Bloomberg showing, yes, global financial conditions are pretty loose, but easing off extreme levels that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I think that's another reason. That's very interesting that you raised this, right? Because yes, I agree. Many regions either do not become looser or even sort of tighten, especially the US, I guess. Again, China is different. China has already tightened, and arguably that's also part of the reason, other than the internet platforms, why China has lagged other markets. Now, we think in the second half, China is at least neutralizing, possibly even injecting a bit more liquidity on moderate levels, not violent. But nonetheless, that's what I mean by tables turning. Right? So U.S. tightening, a region like China, for example, already tightened and stopped tightening. So also here from a flow point of view, you could see an advantage for China.
What are the green tech industries? You talk about the theme as being a future of Earth. Where are the opportunities there for that theme?
Yeah, and we have a couple, and especially when you mention green, I believe that it's important. Right? Of course, everybody looks at the electric vehicle space, possibly the battery space, and yes, that is of course from a growth angle, an interesting area in its own right. But we'd like to take it a little bit broader. I mean, there's a lot of competition in both these areas, and some other areas that are not so often looked at, like storage, like distribution of power. It's very different now from what it used to be. The utilities model completely getting turned on its head. Some of these companies, especially also in solar and wind, are much more profitable, right? So from an economics point of view, it's good to wrap these all into this green basket.
What do you like in terms of alternative yield strategies?
Yeah, I think that right now, certainly the private equity side, with what it usually offers, the premiums, so the illiquidity premiums remains actually very, very interesting. We also see opportunistically a couple of good opportunities coming up. Otherwise, yeah, on the hedge fund side, you can also look at that. We think, especially what you mentioned before, so the Fed basically turning the ship and then eventually tightening, that may also through the summer months give us a bit of volatility that when you let some hedge fund managers help here during this volatility the next couple of months, that might also be a suitable idea.
Of course, we have the Japan Open right now. We're seeing a little bit of upside at the moment, but given its cyclical nature when it comes to the Japanese stock markets, not to mention some of those green technologies present in that market, what are you seeing as opportunities there?
Yeah, Japan is of course very, very heavy, especially on the EV side, not just with its large companies that also have maybe even some optionality on hydrogen or fuel cells, if you will, which some other global operators or global OEMs have meanwhile sort of abandoned. So they're actually cooperating with these global operators or OEMs. And even though that's a story that's perhaps a couple of years out, that's interesting. And then naturally, Japan also has a lot of interesting companies in the food chain. So what I mean by that is the components that you need to put into an EV. So they have both. They have the OEMs and the component makers, and that's a fairly big chunk of the market. So also from that angle, beyond the reopening, that's an interesting angle.